Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Average Pundits, your home of all things Premier League. We hope everyone is doing well. We hope everyone is being safe at home. This is obviously a very strange episode. We're recording this on Skype. We are away from our normal studio, as everyone else is away from their normal areas at the moment. Stay indoors, stay safe. Listen to this. Hopefully, we can give you guys a little bit of a relief from the normal kind of worries that's going on at the moment. As always, I've got my co-host Reese. How you doing, mate?
Hello. It's very strange times at the minute. We're all in lockdown, isolation, washing our hands, staying indoors. That's the main thing. We're not being silly and going outside. So, at least we can do is bring the listeners here a bit of entertainment. And what an episode to come back to.
Yeah, what an episode to come back to indeed. As always, the headlines for football will be continuously rolling in despite the actual game being stopped. But the headlines leading at the moment has to be the potential impending takeover at Newcastle, Reese.
Yes. So Newcastle United have been amid rumours for I don't know so many years. Most recently being Amanda Stavley in 2018, where Mike Ashley was actually deeming the talks with Amanda a waste of time. So this is the closest that Newcastle have been to being taken over. The rumors have been circulating for years, but yeah. So what we know so far is, documentation from Tuesday, the 14th of April, 2020, shows that Amanda Stavley and her Saudi backers, who she's going to share Newcastle United with in a 300 to 400 million pound takeover. They have actually laid down the legal framework for a takeover to be completed, and it's believed that the documentation is being gone through with the Premier League and should be completed within the next 4 to 8 weeks.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting scenario. Takeovers at Newcastle have been a subject of discussion for many years now. If you're not familiar, the current owner, Mike Ashley, he's been around for a long time at the club. How long has he been in ownership now? Off the top of my head, I can't.
He took over the club in 2007. And that's just before he took over. Came in for a year. He wore the shirts to all the games and tried to mask the fact that to all the fans that he was part of the club. He was one of them. And in reality, it was way further than anyone could understand.
He's been a subject of much controversy among the Newcastle fans. A lot of Premier League owners now are coming under more scrutiny, but no so more than Mike Ashley. Such controversies as, he changed the name of the stadium as well, didn't he? The Sports Direct. Yes. That didn't go down too well at the time.
No, and all the Sports Direct branding around the stadium. Oh, hello, Sports Direct branding all over the stadium. The fans have just been really unhappy with their ownership for the past couple of years, and they've been, screaming for some sort of takeover to happen, and for it to actually finally almost happen right now. I mean, by the time that this video comes out, maybe it has happened, and we'll have to cover our tracks and do another video or podcast where we talk about the actual takeover of what it will mean. So Newcastle fans will be absolutely thrilled if this does go through. If not, hearts will be broken once again.
Yeah, they will. I think we were saying the other day that it's all well and good this talk being going on, but if this doesn't happen now, getting the Newcastle fans' hopes up again after time, this will be heartbreaking for a club.
It's a bit weird.
It's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult. Either way, right now, Newcastle probably are a team which could do with a bit of a cash injection. I mean, there are good players amongst the ranks of the club.
Yes.
We were saying the other day we compiled a little list of some of the talents that they've got at the moment. Obviously, they spent big in the summer on Alan St. Maximin. They've got Joe Linton, Miguel Almiron. They've got the Longstaff brothers. I think have been making a bit of an impact this season. Tellez, a great captain. I think that could lead Newcastle forward. Dubravka, obviously, I think he's been one of the best keepers in the Prem this season.
Yeah, absolutely. He's had a phenomenal season. I'd say one of the top 5 goalkeepers in the league, along with the likes of Nick Pope, Alisson, Edison, and I mean you could argue David De Gea as well, but Dubravka's definitely been up there. He's kept a lot of clean sheets from a shaky back. I mean, what Steve Bruce would play a back 5 really, with newly acquired Lazaro and Danny Rose at the left back situation. So with Dubravka, he's an absolutely fantastic keeper, and the rest of the team is amazing as well. But when it comes to taking over the team, there's not, you're not gonna have Newcastle being, you're not gonna have Newcastle becoming the next Manchester City or the next PSG or something. So it's a little. It's a little more than what Newcastle fans needed, and it's just a cash injection that will be needed to help the team rather than help it become a business like Ashley was actually running it as.
I think that's the worry, isn't it? I mean, Manchester City were the it's like the model for a financial takeover, really, isn't it? The money came in, they spent all the money on these world-ending players, and they do it season after season, and they get the big managers in, and the argument is it's almost taken the magic a bit out of football. It's turned it into a straight business, and Newcastle are a club with hundreds and thousands of diehard fans, which arguably City didn't have.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, before the takeover, City had just got smashed by Middlesbrough 8-1. So, the Man City fans have been wanting something to happen to their club for years and years, and I mean, Manchester, yeah, like you say, Manchester City haven't really ever had a team. Manchester City have never really had fans that that have stuck with them constantly. I mean, they've had that constant fan base, but there's always the jokes of the fans never actually fill the Etihad.
Yeah, it is kind of a running joke in football, but I mean, it's not like it's not based off some evidence when you see the games.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But I've been watching a lot of content online and everything, and the Newcastle fan base is so vast, and people forget it wasn't that long ago they were competing for the Premier League title. They finished second to United. What was it in?
Was it? It wasn't the treble winning season, was it? It was definitely when Shearer was there. I know that.
Oh yeah, 100%. It was when Shearer was there. Shearer basically pioneered that. I think it was the 90, 95, 96.
Maybe.
Not sure. But anyway, it's a club which I think has the foundation to be great. So having that injection into the club would be very good for the fans. On the flip side, I want to talk about the effects that could have on the rest of the league. Do the league need another Bond villain level money injection into a club? Is that what the league needs right now?
I mean, obviously the fans are going to have a lot of backlash from other Premier League teams, such as a lot of other big cities. I mean, Newcastle is a huge city, and it needs a team to represent that, and it's been something that's been lacking for a while. Newcastle is a big team that should be up near the upper echelons of the Premier League. It should be in the top. It should be fighting for European contentions, like it used to be when Alan Shearer was playing. And now, I mean, I guess now with the whole controversy of the Saudi backers coming in and the reputation of Saudi Arabia as a company, and they have direct links to the actual, the Saudi prince, who is trying to make Saudi Arabia a better and more progressive place. I won't get into the politics of Saudi Arabia, but there is a lot of controversies there with the country and how people are treated, the human rights, and so on and so forth. And I feel like that's where a lot of the controversy lies. Whereas the money is concerned, I mean, how they're worth maybe £260 billion. I am around about my estimation is. So this makes them the richest club in England if this goes through.
I guess it would, in that list, other teams floating around. Charlton is somewhere amongst those ranks, aren't they? Because they had massive cash injection to their club. And owners with a lot of money. So maybe the same kind of thing to do with Charlton could be on the cards fairly soon. I think as well, another good point to to put in play that it's all well and good having the money at a club. It's all well and good having the owners that are invested. You need a team running that club who knows what to do with it. When the money came in to Manchester City, it was a bit shaky at first. I think it might have been under Mark Hughes, but then after a while, the management of like Pellegrini, for example, and then Mancini came in with managers with a little bit more knowledge of how to run a successful club.
Mm-hmm.
Newcastle had that. Newcastle had one of the best managers for a very long time that they've had at that club, and they let him go.
Yeah, Rafa Benitez.
Which yeah, I can't quite believe. I mean, and that, no discredit to Steve Bruce. I think he was so underestimated, and he's done okay. He's done all right.
Yeah, Steve Bruce is, he's come in, and the only problem with Steve Bruce's style of play is it's very defensive. It doesn't actually fit the style of play of players like Saint-Maximin and Joelinton and Almiron. That's why they're not scoring as much. But the defenders are scoring quite a lot. You got Fabian Schär, who's scoring quite a bit from set pieces.
I like Schär. He's a good player.
He's fantastic. He's not quite old as well. He's 27, 28. He's still got a lot left to offer for Newcastle, and I think he's got a lot to improve. He's played fantastically this season. There's been quite a few Newcastle players that have been firing on all cylinders for them. They have been playing very well. Miguel Almiron has been, he's found a bit more form. Saint-Maximin had a bit of a slow start, but he's been finding more and more form as the season went on. And I mean, this whole pandemic situation is probably stopping that momentum for Saint-Maximin, and maybe offering Saint-Maximin another opportunity to go elsewhere, maybe in the summer. Or if this deal does go through, hopefully they can be smart enough to build the team around him. And maybe, I mean, I'm sorry, I think Steve Bruce is a okay manager, not the greatest, not the worst. He's just, if we're doing it hype train situation, Steve Bruce is an average manager.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And his style of play does not fit a very big prospect in Saint-Maximin. I believe that they have to they have to do the Man City. Obviously, they have to trial some managers to get to that point. But when they do get a manager with a lot more tactics involved, like a Mancini or the Pellegrini situation at Manchester City, sort of can help elevate Newcastle into maybe European contention, but that could take numerous years yet.
A couple of the managers that are on the spectrum at the moment. Obviously, Rafa Benitez's name is being thrown around, but I don't know about you. I feel it's quite unlikely getting him back. I mean, I know he'll have owners which will respect him and all that, but I think it will take a bit. I think it could happen, but it would take a bit. But the other name that's being floated around is Mauricio Pochettino. I think that would be absolutely phenomenal. He is somebody who knows how to build up a club. He did wonders for Southampton. He did wonders for Spurs. I think with a cash injection, with money, with owners who will let him run the club. Well, he said before in interviews to Tottenham that he more views himself as a coach as opposed to a manager. He views himself as the first coach. So I think as long as he has owners and people around him who are helping him with the recruiting and everything like that, and they let him run his team, that could be an extremely successful manager at that club.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
He's hot property right now. He's currently without anyone. There was a lot of talk about him going to Manchester United. That was looking likely, but Ole Gunnar Solskjaer managed to find some kind of balance. So at the moment, Ole's role, I think, is still safe at the club. I'd love to have Pochettino at United at some point, but for Newcastle, if I'm speaking unbiasedly, if I'm speaking for a manager to go for, I would be really looking at Pochettino if I could.
Yeah, I mean, to bring it back to Rafa Benitez, the whole reason why he left Newcastle in the first place was because he wanted no part of the Joelinton transfer. Mike Ashley had his scouts and had scouted Joelinton over the summer, and Mike Ashley wanted Joelinton. He was going to give Rafa Benitez an X amount of money to go out and get his man. And Rafa Benitez did not want Joelinton. Rafa Benitez wanted more players, better players than an unproven young commodity that had just been playing first team football for did he come from Hoffenheim, where
Hoffenheim.
the same team that Roberto Firmino came from. Obviously, he wasn't firing as much as Firmino did the season before he went to Liverpool. But I mean, it wasn't a bad shout. He had a lot of promise at the time, and Mike Ashley wanted to go through, and I'm guessing Steve Bruce was one of the ones that was willing to go through with the transfer. With the Pochettino situation, you've got a manager that can actually nurture and hone his craft towards the Newcastle team. Like, he has been known to raise so much potential of the Newcastle, not Newcastle, the Spurs, the young players around that team. Like, you think of guys like Harry Kane and Dele Alli, they had a new lease of life under Mauricio Pochettino. He was fantastic at using the youth in that team and raising their stocks so that they could become fantastic world-class players. And I think if this takeover does happen, Pochettino could be one of those ones that, if Newcastle was smart, and I'll get to this a little bit later, investing in the youth program, Pochettino could be the one to bridge the gap between using a lot of youth talent and bringing them over into the first team and really building the grounds and helping them to secure a great future, rather than just settling for old has-been good players, like going for players like Giroud and Jack Wilshere. Those players wouldn't really fit. Like, they would take a big wage, but I don't think that they're a good fit for Newcastle. I think investing in the youth is probably where Pochettino lies.
I think that's a good that's a good idea, mate. I think that's kind of the management style which Poch brings. I think he just unites the blend of players around him, and he's a team manager. He wins over the team. He gets the team on his side, and they end up wanting to play for him, which is something Newcastle could really use. At the moment, Newcastle sitting 13th in the Premier League. That's where they currently stand.
Yeah.
Obviously, right now, I don't know about you. I think it's looking unlikely. Maybe the Premier League will finish the way in a way which everyone's happy with. I think whichever way it does finish, it's going to leave some heads, being scratched a bit. But Newcastle are safe. They're well out of the relegation spots, so I'd imagine they will be fit and flying next season if they can have a good summer. And what a better time to bring the money in now, so they can be hopefully ready to go for next season.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there has been talks of ending the season numerous ways, whether that just be handing the current first place holders in Liverpool the title. But what does that hold for the relegation battle? And would that be a bit too controversial to leave them and either keep them in the league and then bring the two teams from the Championship and have a 22-team season next year, and where I think it was 4 or 5 teams get relegated, or whether we get another or we just don't null and void the season? I think it'd be quite annoying for some people to null and void the season. I think just give the European. I think just finish the season if you're going to finish the season now. But there are talks now of actually continuing the season in June, I think. But if you're going to finish the season now, I think you give the teams at a later date where football can resume, but behind closed doors, where it's safe to do so again, for the bottom, I don't know, 4 teams, have a round robin tournament where you have those, have them play, and the 3 teams, or either the 3 or the 2. I think you probably go with 2 teams that finish on the lowest amount of points, go down, and the 2 teams that are currently first and second in the Championship can come up to the Premier League, and we resume next time with a clean slate.
If any of you guys have any opinions how you think it should end, please get in contact with us. All of our social media platforms. You can get to us on Instagram, get to us on Twitter, get to us on our YouTube comments, and we will try and include them for the next episode. Going back to Newcastle, another kind of area I think which is quite interesting during this takeover. At the moment, when these big money moves happen as well, there's also investments which are made around the actual team itself. Aside from the team, around the club, you've got training facilities which drastically need updating. Newcastle's training facilities I've seen some pictures of them. If you compare them to something like they've got at Man City, it's absolutely obscene. Like Man City's training pitches rival anything which they have at that club, and I'm not even kidding. I mean, the Man City's training facility is absolutely off the wall. But aside from the team, I think affecting the training facilities as well and reinvesting in the academy is an interesting format. And you've seen a lot of Premier League clubs which have put a lot of money into their academy over the years. Chelsea and Manchester United, I think, in my opinion, are the two most successful at it. I think Southampton over the years have been very, very good at producing young talent. But Man United and Chelsea right now, I think, are the examples. City are emerging more into the forefront with it. But a well-functioning academy at Newcastle could provide a whole new level of talent into the club. It would mean they'd be spending less money on signings. It would mean they've got a few more prospects to look forward to in the future. I think that's another thing which that money can go towards.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, investment in a new training facility. I mean, I've been watching the Amazon Prime documentary All or Nothing Manchester City, and their youth program is fantastic. They have like kids coming in, the parents drop the kids off, and they have them, dribbling a ball. I mean, they're way better than any other kids that I've seen play football. And if they're the future of football, where better to start? I mean, back in the day, you'd see clips of Manchester United's youth program, and you'd see clips with Ruud van Nistelrooy showing young Danny Welbeck a couple skills. And Danny Welbeck went to have, despite what the naysayers might say, a successful career in the Premier League. He was an unstoppable goal scorer for a couple years, and he's proven to be a decent striker. I mean,
yeah.
You carry on.
I was going to say, it's just different success stories, isn't it? I mean, an academy doesn't have to produce necessarily the world-ending players, but there's been plenty of people who have come up through the ranks who have just been consistent Premier League players over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, look at Manchester United. You've got players such as Greenwood. You've got did Rashford come through the system as well?
Yeah, right. System. You got Andres Pereira. He pretty much came through the system. He was bought from PSV, but he pretty much trained academy. Paul Pogba, Callum Borthwick-Jackson, Demi Mitchell. These are all players which are have come through the academy and are probably going to have an extended career once they leave United.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if Newcastle can do half of what Manchester United did, I mean, producing the likes of Paul Pogba, who is, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the greatest central midfielders in the world right now, you can provide a lot of good players out of a good youth system. If not, maybe just having the mindset of building the ground from their foundations again, bringing in a lot of youth players that may not cost a bomb. They can cost maybe 20 million at most. Yeah. I've made a note of a few players that could come from potential selling teams or that teams that have been known to sell in the past. Ihataren, he's a creative central attacking midfielder from PSV. Dominguez, who plays for Bologna. He is a central midfielder / central defensive midfielder, and I think he could be a great replacement for a guy like Jonjo Shelvey, who could then take a back seat and maybe work on his managerial skills a bit, because I think he's quite the leader. Pau Torres, who plays for Villarreal, centre back that could in turn partner with Lascelles or Fabian Schär. That could be a very nice tandem, and have him learn from all the players, especially if we have a manager such as Mauricio Pochettino, who could have all these players rise up and make a name for themselves. And finally, I've got a player that could replace Miguel Almiron if he is still floundering a bit, and that's Atal from Nice, who is he's like a hybrid of a player. He can play right back or right wing. You put him in any position and he can play. He's a fantastic young prospect, and I think that Newcastle might be a good fit for him.
I think obviously the money coming in, this is the kind of thing they should be doing. They should be scouting the young players. They should be getting the football manager out and just seeing what they can discover. That's definitely what they need to be doing. I mean, now that Newcastle are without a doubt the biggest club in Tyneside, and they have been for a long time. But I mean, with Sunderland in the depths of hell and just doesn't seem to really be moving right now. If you haven't seen it, go and watch the Sunderland documentary on Netflix. They've released the second season fairly recently. It's very well worth a watch. It's very interesting to see as a club kind of what's gone wrong.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to give that a watch as soon as I finish the Manchester City one.
But right now, Newcastle, they could be the complete opposite. Newcastle have had their problems in the past. They've had their relegation scraps. They've had their battles. This could be a much welcomed change to Tyneside football, and I think it's one which the fans have been dying to see for a long time. They've struggled under Mike Ashley. They've had their worries, and it's time for them to be put to an end. They need something to look forward to now.
Oh, absolutely. Like currently living with someone who is a Newcastle fan in this lockdown, and he can't wait to see the back of Ashley. It's been so many years of heartbreak and just it's just frustration on the part of the Newcastle fans. Like knowing quite a few Newcastle fans now, they just have been waiting so long for some fresh, new, entertaining football and a brand that they can be proud of, and it's not happening. They're stuck with a guy that has been in a lot of controversy in this lockdown and kept his shops open and his workers working constantly without the permission of the government. I mean, this leads me on to where this could lead Newcastle now. Correct investment won't see direct results, as we know. Like Manchester City was not the title-winning champions that they were straight away. It took them 4 years of wrongdoings and scouting for them to get where they were, to get their talisman in Sergio Aguero. I mean, it took them years of signing Roque Santa Cruz and Robinho, who were both kind of flops at the club, for them to get anywhere near. So it's going to take surplus of 5 years before we see any kind of title challenge, if any, or European challenge for Newcastle, really.
Yeah.
So maybe the fifth season you'll see them fighting for spots with Wolves and Leicester.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the Premier League table, you've got, it's not necessarily a top 4 anymore. It's a top 8. I mean, with Newcastle, it could be a top 9. You've got Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester City, Manchester United, Wolves, Leicester, Liverpool, Spurs, and then if you add Newcastle in there, that's the top 9. That's almost half of the table. That's such a hard bracket to get in with so many really good teams in there.
Yeah. It is. It's an uphill struggle right now. The Premier League's never been more competitive than it has.
Absolutely. I mean, there's 8 teams that could be challenging for Europa League spot. I mean, add in Sheffield United this season as well. They're doing fantastic. I mean, by the 5th season, they could be up there challenging in the 7th or 6th spots. That could be where Newcastle United could be. They could be playing Thursday nights. The passionate Newcastle fans back on Thursday nights with flares and singing all their tune songs. That's where all non-biased fans want to see Newcastle at this time, because even all I'm a Liverpool fan. I hate Mike Ashley. I think you probably have a sort of disdain for Mike. I think every single football fan does not like Mike Ashley.
I think every self-respecting fan who can kind of see from be human, see aside from rivalries and see what he's caused, to a football club. I think it's hard to defend him. I don't think anyone can defend him.
No, I mean, also, from this you can invest in a fantastic youth system, which introduces a lot of fresh faces and good homegrown talent. I mean, you see Spurs, they have Harry Kane, Trent for Liverpool, and Greenwood for Man United. This equals fan favourites. It's players that they can get behind. If you can get a homegrown Newcastle talent like Alan Shearer was, obviously, I mean, I'm not sure if he came through the Newcastle Academy, but Newcastle, if you get a Toon lad who puts his heart and soul into the Newcastle team and is very promising, you have a fan favourite for life. Yeah. And that investment in a player, not necessarily a club, but in a player, you get a striker that scores goals from Newcastle, you've got immediate fan investment.
I'd agree with that.
So I think that if this takeover goes through, it's a complete win for the fans. It's a complete win for football to see the back of I mean, he's a great businessman, but he's a horrible person in Mike Ashley, because the Newcastle fans have been waiting for this for too long. and finally we're on the brink of ridding a bad omen, one of probably the worst owner of any Premier League club at the moment.
Moving on now, we have a little recorded message coming through from season ticket holder Alex Smith, who you may remember featured on the podcast not too long ago. He's a Coventry City football fan, but he holds a season ticket with Newcastle, so he can go get his fair action at Premier League football. He's very invested with the club. He knows the runnings of the club. He goes there and he knows the kind of caliber which the club have and the levels it can get to. So without further ado, here is Alex Smith's opinion.
Obviously, with the takeover about to go through, it's potentially exciting times at St James's Park. Having spent a lot of time up there myself, living near the area and going to a lot of games, I know how much the fans have been pining for this takeover for years, so I think they deserve it as well. Even under Mike Ashley's poor ownership, they've sold out St James's Park and away ends up and down the country, really, so they deserve a bit of success. There's just something unique about Newcastle, really, as a club, with the fact that, you know, it's one team, one city. It's a fiercely proud city as well. If you're from Newcastle, that's who you support. And the mood of the whole entire city depends a lot on how the team are performing. And if the Saudis can unlock that potential, then the sky really is the limit for as far as they can go, in my opinion. And in terms of management, I think it's only fair for Steve Bruce to get the opportunity to stake his claim for the long-term position. The football has been dull at times this season, but you can't argue with the results that he's got. You know, he's built a team, one of the best goalkeepers in the league, in my opinion, in Martin Dubravka. He's built a solid defence to play in front of him, which has chipped in with a few goals, with the likes of Federico Fernandez and Kieran Clark emerging as unlikely heroes. But the main issue, really, has been up top. There's no doubt that Alan St Maximin, Miguel Almiron and Joe Linton possess quality, but one of the theories is that it's Bruce's reluctance to play attacking football, which is what has limited them to just 5 goals between the three of them this season. But to give Bruce some credit, you know, everyone thought Newcastle were doomed at the start of the season when he took over, and particularly after a 5-0 thrashing that they did receive off Leicester City back in September. But to Bruce's credit, he switched things up, and he's made Newcastle a side who, whilst not scoring many goals, they're a team that are hard to beat. Only 3 teams have gone up to St James's Park and took 3 points back with them this season. However, I do think it is inevitable that the Saudis will look to bring in their own man. And in my opinion, who else would be more fitting to take over at the start of a new era than Rafa Benitez? You know, Rafa was Mike Ashley's last chance of any success whilst owner of Newcastle United, and letting him leave so easily was the point where he hit the point of no return amongst pretty much every Newcastle fan. But, you know, Rafa wanted to stay, but it was Mike Ashley's unwillingness to change the way the club was ran that saw him leave. And I'm not exaggerating when I say when he was there, he was seen as some sort of god, so he'd be an extremely popular choice to take over.
There you go, guys. Thank you very much, Alex, for that. As always, thank you very much, guys, for listening to this podcast. It's a little 30-minute one that we're doing today, around about half an hour. As always, you can get in touch with us on our social media platforms, on Instagram at The Average Pundits, on Twitter at Pundits Average, our business email, which is, I believe, is it theaveragepunditsoutlook.com, Reece?
Indeed it is, and you can head over there for any business inquiries that you may have with The Average Pundits, whether that is, I mean, in lockdown right now, you could come on a Skype call and be one of our guests and talk about your team and any football-related content.
Yeah. Guys, on a serious note, we hope everyone is staying inside. This is a very serious time. We all want to get this out of the way. Everyone's just as frustrated. But we're not going to get to it, get out of it early by going out and gallivanting around. So please stay inside, stay safe, save lives. A massive thank you to the NHS, all health workers right now who are out there doing what they do. If you could share this video, if you could subscribe to our YouTube, follow us on the social media platforms for more updates, it would mean the absolute world to us. We're going to try and start producing regular coronavirus content. So as always, get in contact with us. And thank you very much, Reece, for today.
Yeah, no worries. You know, it's been an itch that we've been needed to scratch to get back at this podcasting, and try and provide content where it's needed. So hopefully the ones viewing this, thank you so much for staying indoors and watching this podcast. I know that it's been quite troubled times, and thank you to all the key workers that are out there. I'm again living with a key worker right now, and she's doing her hardest, and everyone is pulling their part, and it's very important that we all stick together at this point. So thank you very much for listening as well.
That is very true, mate. Well, there you go, guys, and thank you very much for listening, and we will see you next time.